Shabbat Shalom. I am a daughter of Yisrayl Hawkins, and I like to serve you as a priest starting very soon. Please start finding your seats for Sabbath services.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm a daughter of Yisrayl Hawkins, and I want to serve you as a priestess starting very soon. Welcome to another exciting services. Please get your pens and paper ready to take notes. Please welcome the great priest of the house of Yahweh.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please be seated for a few announcements. Attention all who keep bees in the great house of Yahweh. We know the important job bees have in producing food for us through pollination, and the products they produce for us, such as honey and propolis. Honeybee diseases are abominations. They can spread from colony to colony, quickly leading to the death of hundreds of colonies in just one season. That is why it is so important for us to make sure they are maintained and are healthy. All beekeepers, please pick up a copy of the City of Yisrayl Beekeeping Rules and Regulations at the South Office and help us protect our bees and the food supply. Thank you. Attention sisters, the cafeteria is in need of help every prep day from 4 to 7 p.m. Please stop by after services and let us know what time you can come. Any amount of time will be helpful. This Sabbath, enjoy your takeout dinner and supper today at the Lamplight Cafeteria. For dinner, we will be serving okie goat sweet potatoes, and radish salad. For desserts, we have cake, ice cream, and okishodom. The cafeteria will close at 5:30 p.m. sharp and will reopen Thursday morning at 7:30 a.m. The evening meal will be served in the cafeteria only, starting at 4:45 p.m. We will be serving burritos, desserts, and ice cream. And that's all the announcements. If you all please stand, we'll go ahead and have opening prayer.
If you'd all please raise your hands, Father Yahweh. Our Father in heaven, whose name is Yahweh, this is Son Deacon Barsley. Come to my earth, Quantane Ashrang, being seed of the last witness, Yisrayl Hawkins, and through Son Yeshua Messiah. Father Yahweh, we thank you for bringing us to this Sabbath day where we learn to be servants to one another and be humble, obedient, respectful, and responsible. Please bless Pastor and give him the full use of his subconscious mind with safety and protection to keep this work going. Please bless the sick and afflicted. Please bless the work and the workers. Please, God, inspire and direct us every minute, second, hour of the day. Please bless the food, drink, water, and the air that you provide for us. Please help it to nourish and sustain us. And please make us who you want us to be, because that's who we want to be. In unity with the great body of priests, Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins, them by the authority of our most righteous, Ahab, leader, teacher, king, and guide, Yeshua Messiah. Hallelujah, praise Yahweh.
Most holy and righteous Heavenly Father Yahweh, this is Samuyl Hawkins, along with this your family, Father, begging permission to come before you as seed of the last day's witness, the great Yisrayl Hawkins, and through our most Ahab and honorable High Priest and King Yeshua Messiah. Father, we thank you for this opportunity to have our prayers presented to you, Father. I hope that they're all pleasing in your sight and pleasing in your mind and your heart, Father, that you can see the growth within each and every one of us, and that it is a sweet-smelling aroma, just as this incense is, Father. We do thank you again for the unity, Father, that we see each and every week, the progress that we're making, Father, in overcoming. We thank you for the instruction and the teaching from your last day's witness, the great Yisrayl Hawkins. Pray that he would continue to be strengthened, strong, and courageous, and we would be able to hear from him, Father, for all eternity. I do pray, Father, that we do put forth every effort to overcome anything that's left within us, Father, so that we can be in unity, so that your plan can continue to progress with us in it. We do love you, hob you, Father, and ask these things of you in unity with the body of priests of the house of Yahweh, as seed of the last day's witness, the great Yisrayl Hawkins, and through our most Ahab, High Priest and King Yeshua Messiah. Hallelujah, Yahweh. Praise Yahweh.
At this time, it's a privilege and honor to turn the services over to the daughters of Yahweh.
Shalom, everyone. We are in for a power-packed spiritual learning experience. Be prepared to take notes. Please stand as I welcome the first teacher.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please be seated. Okay. Today, I'm going to be giving you a brief rundown on the famines that are taking place in this time period. But I wanted to let you know that there is a new new newsletter on the table that you definitely need to get so that you can read up on what is taking place with this coronavirus. And the title of the newsletter is "The Coronavirus Will Not Stop Until It Affects Every Person with the Mark of the Beast." If I could have my first slide, please. I wanted to show you now all of these stats are from the worldometers.com. And if you see the first one, it's world population, coronavirus cases and deaths, and other global deaths as of Samuyl 12, 2020. Now, the deaths for this year is 53,539,468. Of those deaths, the coronavirus is responsible. Now, the coronavirus itself isn't causing the deaths, but the coronavirus is responsible for 62,112,273 deaths. Now, this is the coronavirus. These are the symptoms that the coronavirus causes in your body, which causes your body, with all of the sins that have been laid upon, layer after layer after layer, for you to die. Now, the deaths for that is 1,451,820. If I have my next slide, please. Now, the coronavirus is affecting 218 countries and territories. There are 241 countries and territories. Now, the territories are double counted because they are actually under control by other countries. But if you notice, the world's total number of cases is almost 62 million cases. The United States has 13,554,346. It's the leading cause of the numbers of the deaths of the coronavirus. If I could have my next slide. Now, people have been comparing the coronavirus with the seasonal flu. On this page right here, you will see the seasonal flu deaths as of today is 387. The seasonal flu deaths as of this year is 445,665. It doesn't even compare to the number of deaths with the COVID. Now, what I want to continue on with, if I could have my next slide, please. I wanted to get into the famines. And if you could just, I'm just going to read this. We're going to be referencing Daniel 12:6, and it says, "And one said to the man clothed in linen, who on that future day is teaching, how long will it be till the end of these wonders?" And if you could show that slide again, please. This is from the book of Yahweh, Revelation chapter 18, verse 8. "Therefore her plagues will come in one day of death and mourning and famine, and she will be utterly burned with fire," which leads to the bombs. If I could have my next slide, please. This is from the Mark of the Beast, part 2. This is the overseer wrote this in 1976, and it says, chapter 7, verse 115. "In the first half, the first 3.5 years of this period, we have nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom." Continual war. We have had continual war in this time period since World War II, which started in 1939, 4 years after the overseer was born. And it has been continuing on ever since. And it says we will have famine, disease, epidemics, and earthquakes in various places. So great is the hatred Satan has stirred up, even in this time, mankind would then destroy all life if Yahweh would permit it. Okay, if I could have my next slide, please. In the 19th book of Yisrayl, it says there's going to be famines and pestilences, disease epidemics. They put pestilence there. It is actually disease epidemics. And if I could have my next slide, this is the second book of Yisrayl. And it says that Yahweh shows in Isaiah 14 and Yeketziah 28 that they will actually be bringing nations down. And this is brought about by trade, deceptive trade practices. And one of the things that I want to reference is that Yemen is in imminent danger of the world's worst famine in decades. This is because of the deceptive trade practices. Now, I want to go over some headlines here, and I just want you to write these down. This is the headlines that are taking place because of these famines. The UN warns of famines of biblical proportions within the next year. It can get a lot worse, which is from Houston. 4 new areas of imminent risk of famine, the UN warns, and these are 4 countries that are going to be in imminent risk of famine. And new wave of famine sweeps the globe. Now, you think that's just other countries. But in the United States, this is what's going on in Texas and the countries. Refrigerated trucks requested in Texas and Arizona as morgues fill up due to the coronavirus. New York City dead stay in freezer trucks set up during the spring surge. El Paso, Texas calls in 10 morgue trucks as the coronavirus surge continues. These people are dead and they can't bury them. Remember the prophecies that the overseer has been bringing out that's going to take place in this time period. Nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, religion against religion. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the next speaker.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You can be seated. Now, we know that the result of sin are the religious teachings. And we know that they teach you will surely not die, be like the gods. But we know that when you read word for word Genesis 3:5, you'll see that the teachings of God worship, being the gods, is being evil like the gods. And we saw that the other time it being mentioned, it's evil like the gods. And they're the ones, they don't have the authority of Yahweh, the name of Yahweh. They're not prophesied of in the scriptures. They're the ones that are not sent, yet that are spoken of in Jeremiah 23:21. I have not sent these prophets, yet they ran. I have not spoken of them, yet they prophesied. And we know there are many in this last generation, 4,199 of them, which proves what Matthew 24:10 says, and many false prophets will arise, and we know those are religions, will arise and will deceive the many. And we know that the beginning of this kingdom was Babel, as Genesis chapter 10 verse 10 says, which means confusion. And that's one of the characteristics of the coronavirus. It causes confusion. Sin causes confusion, and coronavirus is caused by sin. So they have that confusion, which has caused the 7 last plagues, which will lead to the perishing, the 1 hour burning. And as we saw in Yeketskia chapter 9, the last time, we saw that it's talking about the plagues. Remember, it was Yeketskia chapter 9 and also Revelation chapter 9. They talked about the plagues. And there we saw that there's a man clothed in linen who was told to go and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men who groan and cry aloud, cry over all the abominations that are done in the midst. And we know that's the overseer. He's teaching us how he's the one crying aloud, as Isaiah 58:1 says, and he's teaching us to do the same, to show the people their transgression, what their ways, their sinful ways is bringing. Now, as I continue with those geometrias, we see the man dressed in linen, as we saw the last time. As Yahweh is in full control, he's leading us in this endless kingdom. It's permanent, it's forever, and we are tagged to him as the first fruits in this last generation. And the next geometria, he had the writer's inkhorn, which we see that's 322, the overseer, and he's the one leading this Western work, and he's showing us Yahweh's way. And how is he showing us that? Because he is prophesied, he knows it. As we see in Isaiah chapter 11 verse 2, the spirit of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding was given to him. The next geometria, set a mark upon the foreheads of the men who groan and cry over all the abominations that are done in the midst of the city. We see that's the strength of Yahweh, and that's how we do it, by teaching them Yahweh's way. That crying aloud is teaching. We are teaching them. The next geometria, men who cry and groan over all the abomination done. We see that 30, 46, certify, make, no, make, no, teach. And that's what we do. We're teaching them. 26:04, to entreat. And that word entreat means to ask someone earnestly to do something. And we see the overseer is doing that. He is asking them to turn to Yahweh, to repent and be converted to Yahweh's way. And 26:04 in the Greek, we see it means a proclaimer of Yahweh's way. And that's the overseer. If you see the next geometria, the proclaimer of Yahweh's way is 32:20. If you drop the 0, 322, that's the overseer. So this that is established, this work that was established by the 2 witnesses in these last days, and as Matthew chapter 24 verse 14 says, it says, and this message of the kingdom will be preached to all the world by the one who bears witness to all nations, and then the end will come. And that's what we are doing. So hold fast to the what is written, and know that only those that don't have the mark of Yahweh, they're going to get this mark of the beast. And with this, I'll turn to the next teacher.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please be seated. Such a blessing to be gathered here on another great Sabbath day, have the mark of Yahweh and his protection. And we know Yahweh is proving all his prophecies 100% true. We've been taught about the prophecies concerning 1934 and how all those things have accurately come to pass in this generation. And that's proof to us that the prophecies for the next 2 years, because we're in the last 3.5 years, we have 2 years left, they will come to pass. And Yahshua said in Matthew 24 that this time will be the worst ever. And the world is now seeing that it's the worst ever. We just heard about the cases, the coronavirus cases, and the numbers of deaths due to the effects, the lingering effects, and they're in the millions right now. But like our great overseer said, soon this will pick up speed and get into the billions until it finds everyone who has the mark of the beast. So we have 2 years fit to prove ourselves. We have 2 years left to prove ourselves fit for leadership. And the leadership is something Yahweh promised in the beginning, Genesis 1:26. So how do we do that? Yahshua told us to seek first Yahweh's kingdom and his righteousness. Now this kingdom is the kingdom of priests that is spoken of in Exodus 19. And I encourage you to go read it'll be really great to read the 5th book of Yisrayl over again, because those sermons mean a lot more to us now with the knowledge that we have. The kingdom of priests will bring peace to the universe. Overseer gave a really great series of sermons in this book. And from this book in chapter 14, verse 36, we're going to read that. So he's reading Deuteronomy 28. Yahweh will establish you as a holy or sacred people. That is a priesthood, he says, will have honor throughout the universe by all the beings there. Right now, he has set us in an honorable position. The universe is greatly awaiting our arrival to take over the universe, to put it into order and stop the fighting, sicknesses, and disease that are also taking place there. So we see that it's not only the worst time here on earth, but it's also the worst time of trouble out there due to Satan and her gods and their sin. So the war in heaven and the last 7 plagues is part of what we're going to stop. And if you can go over to Romans chapter 8, it'll also be great to go over Romans chapter 8, but with the coronavirus in mind and the last 7 plagues. Now, for time's sake, we're going to just kind of jump through it. Verse 20, you see, for the creation was made subject to emptiness. That emptiness is spoken of in Genesis chapter 1. Verse 2, emptiness, darkness due to sin. But Yochanan, remember Yochanan, everything was in Yahweh's plan, and the darkness does not take hold of the light. So that's Yahweh's last day's work. Verse 21, because the creation itself will also be delivered from the bondage of corruption into this glorious liberty by the children of Yahweh. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning. It's been groaning for 6,000 years, as in the labor of childbirth right up to this present time in the last days. Notice that bondage of corruption, and think about the coronavirus that's been held in bondage since the time of Abel's murder and held captive in the earth. And remember that analogy our overseer gave us about the hungry calf going to find its mother, just like the coronavirus going to find its host. The whole creation has been groaning. Okay, so we have 2 years left to prove ourselves fit. And how do we do that? We do that by being in unity with Yahweh's house. So we can get our imagery. We already know 322 and 1074 is pastor's tag. 828 is his date of birth. But these are encouraging to us. So proving ourselves fit as a leader and leading by our example, we learn that from our greatest teacher. Part of the character that we need to have is shunning all evil. Notice 1074 is the number for righteousness. So if we're shunning evil, we're practicing righteousness. The kingdom of priests will bring peace to the universe. The goal for mankind, Yahweh said, I will give him authority. That means a leader, 1074. Can we get the next one? The kingdom of priests will bring peace to the universe, endowed with authority from on high. That's the authority Yahweh promised in Genesis 1:26. So the authority, the part of it, If we can get the next one, that's the revealing of his sons and daughters, 3:22, that's us. And part of our job, you see there in Romans 8, we're going to be this generation that delivers the creation, including the dying planets that our overseer talked about. And the last, there will be peace in heaven and in earth, and the planets will be at peace through Yahweh's kingdom of priests that we're qualifying to be part of throughout all eternity. It's a forever job. And with this, if y'all please stand, I'm going to turn it over to the next speaker.
Shabbat Shalom, great saints of Yahweh. Please take your seat in the great house of Yahweh. As I got up this morning and we look at this first slide, it was raining. And when I think of it raining, and it was around 3:22 when that was raining, I think of Deuteronomy 32:2, where it says, "Let my teachings fall like rain, let my words descend like dew, let them fall like showers on the new grass, like abundant rain on plants." And look over to side note R1. This is the evidence that you will have to give, that in your presence I declare that the laws of Yahweh, which I gave to Yisrayl, is life to the world, as the rain, which is life to the world. Now the next slide, takes us over to Deuteronomy 29:29. And there it says, "The secret things belong to Yahweh, our Father, but the things revealed to us, every word that proceeds from Yahweh's mouth belongs to us and to our children forever, so that we will perform and do all the words of this law." And that side note says, and I put Yisrael in there, Yisrael rebukes the people because they sought after things which are only known to Yahweh, and they totally neglected those things Yahweh had revealed to them, such as the laws. And let's go over to Revelation 10:7. In the next slide it says, "Because in the days of the voice of the seventh Malach, when he will begin to sound, the great secret of Yahweh would be revealed." We're seeing here it is revealed, as he declared to his servants the prophets. Now I have a PW here. No, this here one right here. And I got to just show you this picture on this one. If you just take a minute to look at that, a second. I don't have a minute. Okay? The date on this is 12/1986. And this is where the overseer used to write a little note to us before he started into the newsletter. And here it says, Yeshua spent 3.5 years teaching his disciples 2 vital lessons about salvation. Remember, this is 36 years ago he wrote this. This is original. Believe in what is written by the prophets of old. And then he gave the scripture, Luke 24:25. Then he said to them, O fools and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. And now the second vital lesson the overseer wants us to know about salvation, and then to live by what is written. Matthew 4:4, the every word of Yahweh. The overseer doesn't change. He has been the same today, yesterday, and he will be forever, just like Yahweh. So now on page 24 of this newsletter, or PW, it was so amazing because he always does 1 Yachanan 3:4. So I said, it's got to be in here because he always puts 1 Yachanan 3 and 4 in here. And it is. It's on page 24. And if we look at our next slide, you can see that 1 Yachanan 3:4 says, whoever commits sin transgresses also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. Little children, let no man deceive you. He who practices righteousness is righteous, just as he is righteous. He who commits sin is of the devil, for the devil has sinned from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of Yahweh was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. Now it's been pointed out to us. You see that how 1 Yachanan 3, 4, 7, and 8, when you look in the Hebrew for that number, it is the name Yisrayl. I think when that was pointed out, that was like so amazing. And in verse 9 it says, begotten of Yahweh, and we see that we 1074 pastors tag number, and begotten of Yahweh 1074 pastors tag numbers show that we belong to Yahweh. Revelation 10:7, you see with 10:7 is still within that 1074. Now, let's go over to our next slide, which is Isaiah 58, 13. If you turn away your foot from breaking the Sabbath, from doing your pleasure, your own business, your own pleasure on my sacred day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the sacred day of Yahweh honorable, and will honor him by not doing your own ways, not finding your own pleasure, nor engaging in idle conversation. Now that number 58:13 is only found in the Hebrew, and it means to prevail, to be strong. And when you keep Yahweh's laws and keep his Sabbaths, you come and you learn the strength of Yahweh. Now turning back over to Deuteronomy 32, verse 47, these are not just idle words for you. That's where Isaiah got that from. These laws mean life to you. And when you look at 32:47, this is how it's spelled in the Hebrew. Yesod, which means foundation, counsel, established. You see, this is showing you Maggie's saying Yesod when he says, let's teach our children the righteousness of Yahweh. Yesod, you have Maggie and Od there. Teaching, and he got that foundation, he got that counsel, and he was established in the laws of Yahweh. So let's look at this last gematria. It says, behold, I have given him as a witness, as the witness to the people, a leader and commander to the people, 8:28. The only thing was changed in that scripture, Isaiah 55:4, was the word a witness to the witness. And you have pastor, born 8:28. Now it's 4 days before the 40 years in the wilderness is over, and these 40 years in the wilderness, are we ready to cross over? Let us stand for the next teaching.
Shalom, please be seated. The title of my speech is 2 Years Left, 2 Kingdoms, but Only One Right Choice. Now, we belong to the one we obey, right? We belong to the one we obey. And in Romans 6:16, it says, do you not know that whom you yield yourself as servants to obey, his servants you are, whom you choose to obey, whether of sin, which leads to death, coronavirus, or of obedience, which leads to righteousness. Now we know that Cain chose the way of the gods. We learned that in Genesis 3, verse 5, evil as the gods. The coronavirus started immediately with the first sin. As Cain sinned, he became more angry. He became more angry, and with each passing day, angrier, and the coronavirus grew. Now, we have to remember that when we sin, it starts this turmoil, this confusion in our lives, right? Now, in Genesis 4, verses 10 through 12 and verse 15, it says, and he said, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from where? The ground. So now you're cursed from where? The earth, which has done what? Opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. The earth took it and contained it, right? When you work the soil, it's no longer going to yield strength to you. Why? Because that's that curse. You're now eating it. It's coming in your food, your water. You're seeing it, right? And Yahweh said to him, it's established, whoever kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken upon him sevenfold. And Yahweh set a mark. There is your mark of the beast on Cain. That sevenfold in your scriptures has side note U on there. And side note U in the margin, pastor's note says, these are the 7 last plagues of the Great Tribulation. Revelation chapters 8 through 10. Right there, it's been in your scriptures this whole time. Now we're going to go to Cain. He chose a way of death. He chose it. He chose this crown, corona. He made the choice to put this crown on, this corona. The 7 last plagues will involve this crown that he chose from the beginning. Each choice that Cain made built this kingdom or this city of confusion, led by the great deceiver. And who's the great deceiver? Satan. Sin causes confusion. So you have a city of confusion. Remember, it says Cain had this desire to sin because it was put within him. If he had not known sin, he wouldn't have this desire, but the desire was there. It increased, it built. He experimented, he played around, and the confusion made its way to the time period now known as the last days. Revelation 12:9. How do we know the confusion's made it here? Because the whole world is now deceived. The whole world. Genesis 10:10. Remember, the beginning of his kingdom was what? Babylon. What does that mean? Confusion. And he chose this kingdom. He chose this confusion. Sin brings confusion. It brings hatred. You want to know why you hate your brother or your sister? Because you have this mark. The divining serpent, the shedding of the blood since the very first recorded murder in Genesis 4 has found its way to this very day. And we see it all over the world. In Revelation 5 and 6 and 9 and 18, it says, and upon her head was the name written, Mystery Babylon. Remember Babylon? Genesis 10:10, the city, right? Confusion. The great mother of the harlots and the abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunk with what? Blood. You're guilty of the blood right down to Abel in Genesis. And it's exposing. Our overseer has taught us in these newsletters and prophetic words and sermons, they're guilty of the blood all the way down, starting at righteous Abel, to this very day. What organization is this great city? Rome. Rome. Verse 6, drunk with the blood. Verse 9, 7 mountains, where does the Roman Catholic Church on 7 what? 7 hills of Rome, that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. That city in Revelation is the same city spoken of in Genesis chapter 4 and 10. They chose killing. Their leaders and subjects of this kingdom have chose to wear the coronavirus. Revelation 16, 4 through 7. And I heard Pastor Israel Hawkins pouring out this message. And I heard this Moloch say, you're righteous, O Yahweh. You are righteous because you judge this way. For they have shed the blood of the saints, the prophets, and you have given them blood to drink. Such is their due. And I heard another saying out of the altar, this will be so. Father Yahweh Almighty, true and righteous are your judgments. This messenger will not stop pouring out this message until everyone on earth has the mark of the beast has heard it. When the last person who has the mark of the beast has heard this message, 5 moons or months later, Corona will be gone, never to return again. Please read Revelation 16, verse 1 on your time. And remember, we want this mark of Yahweh always upon us. Please stand and welcome the mighty priest in Yahweh's great house. Praise Yahweh.
Praise Yahweh. You know, it started with Cain in the very beginning, and it's continued on to this last day with the Roman Catholics, right? Still the same teachings that's out there, and they're just running loose. But we're tied to the branch, right? We're tied to the chosen one, so remember that. That's where we got to come out of the deception of this world. The further I learn, we get to hear from great Deacon Michael Lawson.
Shabbat Shalom, great saints of Yahweh. Please be seated. Yahweh's peace be with each and every one of you. Let's turn over to Isaiah 44. Isaiah 44. Okay. Page 558. Now remember, the house of Yahweh is established in these last days, and the one sent is the one we must believe, and the one we must believe in too. Yisrayl Hawkins. Not anything we're hearing from the world or the news. We follow the one sent for our guidance and our instructions. Yet, praise Yahweh. And the first of the last 7 plagues is ravaging the earth. We need to understand that and realize this is taking place. The first plague is ravaging the earth. Okay? And we heard this from Yahweh's anointed witness, the anointed spokesman, the one who's authorized to bring us this information. So let's look into this in Isaiah 44, page 558. And in verse 1, of course, it reads, "Yet hear now, O Jacob, my servant, and Yisrael, whom I have chosen." Yisrael, whom I have chosen. Look down to verse 8. "Do not fear nor be afraid. Have I not told you from that time and have declared, you are my witnesses? Is there a source of power except me? Truly, there is no other rock. I know none. I know not one." Okay? Now let's look over to Zechariah. Zechariah 4, and that's found on page, Zechariah 4, page 719. Zechariah 4, 719. And Yahweh once again shows us, "Then he said, these are the two anointed ones who stand for the supreme ruler of the whole earth." Talking about the two witnesses. Now, let's go back to Isaiah 43. Back to Isaiah 43, and that was Zechariah 4:14. Now we're going back to Isaiah. Back to 558. Back to 558. And remember, it says here in chapter 43, verse 28, "Therefore I will dissolve the Levitical priesthood, and I will give Jacob to the curse, and Yisrael to reproaches," showing that one of the two witnesses would be put to death, or death would come upon him and end his ministry, his work, and that Yisrael would take and finish the work that Yahweh has appointed him. Now let's look to Zechariah 6. Zechariah 6, and that's found on page 719 again. Zechariah 6, and in verse 11 it reads, "Take silver and gold and make crowns and set them upon the head of Yahshua, son of Yahweh, the high priest. Speak to him and say," I got so many notes in here I could barely read it. "Speak to him and say," this is, "this is what Yahweh of hosts says, Behold the man whose name is the branch, for he will branch out from his place and he will build the house of Yahweh." Well, who has built the house of Yahweh in these last days under Yahweh and Yahshua's authority? Yisrayl Hawkins. There is no other house of Yahweh. There is no other branch. Yahweh's branch is Yisrayl Hawkins, and he is warning us and warning the world the first plague has kicked in, and boy, it's tearing things apart, isn't it? So let's find out more about Yahweh's branch. Okay, I did this search a long time ago, and I forgot about it. And I stumbled upon it the other day, and I'm like, I need to bring this because it's really important. It's Yahweh's branch. The letter skip was 878 characters between each letter, and 878 in Strong's comes from 874 and means to make plain and distinct, to make clear, to declare as letters on a tablet or letters in the book of Yahweh. Okay? So let's get into this. Now I'm going to try something a little different here. Light. Oh, you turned it on. Sabbath. Okay, it is on. Yeah, that helps a little bit. Okay, we got the light on now. Okay, so it starts off, excuse me. We have the main, which is Yahweh's branch, right there. Yahweh's branch. And of course, the first thing that came up right here is authorized. Authorized came up to Yahweh's branch. Now, pastor's name, Yisrael, was in there like dozens and dozens of times, all over the place. Okay, so we got authorized. Over here, we have beacon. In these last days, Yisrayl Hawkins, the last messenger, is a beacon and a light to the world, bringing peace and teaching the nations a way to peace that they know not of. Okay, and right here we have blessed. Truly blessed of Yahweh. Blessed. Right here we have brave. And I don't think anybody could have gone through what Pastor Yisrael has gone through over the last 40, 50 years in bringing forth the house of Yahweh. Some of the things he's had to endure. Truly is a brave man. Very brave man. Okay? Now this one I love. Okay? Right here, conductor. There was, I meant to bring it. I have a picture of the largest orchestra ever assembled, and there were 7,000 players in an auditorium. I mean, like the first violin section was like, 1,800 violin players. And that entire orchestra, or even down to a small orchestra of like 40 players, cannot perform unless they have a conductor. They'll just play out of time. They won't be in sync together. They've got to have that one person up there leading them, or they can't do it. Yisrayl Hawkins, the house of Yahweh. We can't play and perform without Yisrayl Hawkins conducting us. No way. There's no way. Okay, let's go back to the code. So again, we have conductor right there. 7 and 8 connect together. 7 and 8. Which cross Yahweh's branch, and we have Yisrael, Abel. Yisrael, Abel. All right? Then, of course, Yeshua's name is in here, right here. Our high priest, Yeshua. We have leadership. Oh, wait, did I miss one? I did. Oh, laws of Yahweh, right here. Laws of Yahweh. Then we have Yeshua's name. Then we have leadership. Okay, leadership. And it crosses motivational. Boy, I don't know of anybody who can get a work done like Pastor. When he has to get a job done, he gets it done. He's definitely motivational. And he's the greatest leader on the face of the earth. Okay? Then we have priests, pastor in the priesthood, the Kohanim. All right? And we have salvation. Salvation's right there. And right here we have understanding. Understanding. And of course, this one had to be in there connecting to Yisrael, Abel, and that's Oki. Oki, Yisrael, Abel. Then we have the end, which shows the time period he would be bringing forth this message. The end. And last, right here, we have house, which connects to Yod, He, Wah, He, Yahweh's house. And Yahweh's branch is only at Yahweh's house. And I thought that was a really beautiful search. We do have some other words that were found. Brilliant. And he is a brilliant man. Decorated. Essential. Abeline. Finishing. Forever. Levite. Liberate, praised, uplifted, and last, Daddy. Daddy was the last thing, and I marveled at that, because he is our daddy, right? Praise Yahweh. And that's all we have today for the code search. Yahweh bless you all. You have a wonderful Sabbath. Remember to lift each other up, care for each other, help each other get through the tests and trials, for the kingdom is on its way. And with that, I'll turn it over back to a great priest, the great Kohan, Michael Hawkins.
Man, ain't it great to be here with you, Dad? Praise Yahweh. This is awesome, man, awesome. Which means we're a family, right? We're a family with his sons and daughters. Praise Yahweh. So this time we turn it over to the great Kohan, Benjamin Cross Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom. Yahweh's peace be with everyone. Please be seated. All right. Let's go ahead and get started here. The House of Yahweh put up a post this week. I just had to run it through the gematria to see what it meant. They said that Overseer Yisrayl Hawkins, the last day's witness, is going to be speaking today. I'm just going to edit it down a little. And that everyone needed to be there. He should be here around 11 o'clock, depending on how quickly the speakers get through their information that he assigns them, etc. And notice the number it came out to, 3,006, the number of the original sons. What a coincidence. That's what I was going to be talking about. Okay, so just trying to show how much in unity Yahweh's house is. Okay, so let's go ahead and put up the title slide. Yahweh's peace be with everyone, if I didn't say that. Today's the part 4 of the original sons of Yahweh, Egypt's cabal. Okay, and you see there some symbolism there of the Freemasons from the beginning. Remember, Satan was the first Freemason. And you also see the symbol of the Society of Jesus, or the Jesuits, there on over that. That's in the Church of the Gesu in Rome. That's the Jesuits' founding church. Let's go to the first slide. Okay, so Egypt's cabal was 666. Now let's look at Daniel 8:23, because this is speaking of these last days. It says, in the last days of their kingdom, when the transgressors have reached their fullness, the king of fierce expression and understanding dark sentences, meaning skilled in trickery and deception, which all Jesuits are, will stand up. And this is what we see. And now when you add the footnote there to Daniel 8:23, I added the footnote in. It says, this is what we see arising now, the new world order. Okay, when you add that to it, the first number is 24:20, which means sinister schemes. Notice it's the very word used in Daniel 8:23. Sinister schemes, dark sayings and sentences, speech, intrigue, a trick. From 23:30 to tie a knot, to propound a riddle. The second number, 1452, is from 1443, which I showed you last week, means masons. But when you mirror that number, you get 3441, which you see the word Jesuits. Okay? Now, the third number, 1538, if you notice, 1538 is when the Jesuits, the Company of Jesus, they're called, was founded by, air quotes, Saint Ignatius Loyola. 1538. Okay? Now you see that there, right? Let's go to the next slide. This is from the 8th book of Israel, part 1, chapter 31, verse 8 and 9. Pastor says, now fierce, talking about Daniel 8:23. If you look over to side notes, it means force. And expression means immoral. So it's forced immorality. Did you get that? Fierce expression, the word fierce means force, and the word expression means immorality. Put that quote in, you get 2154. You remember that number from last week? That magnetar had that number 2154, and it means a plan, device, evil intent, immorality, lustful crimes, wicked schemes, heinous crimes, mischief. From 2161, plot, plotted, scheme, think evil, to plan, usually in a bad sense. Remember, we're talking about these Freemasons, these Jesuits from the beginning. Notice the second number, 1227, it means to make empty, to depopulate. To depopulate. So they got some kind of evil scheme going here, this plan to depopulate. And notice here, 1227 in the Greek means sea. Well, remember, that's talking about the Holy See, air quotes, on the word holy there. Notice the Black Pope of the Society of Jesus is also 2154. That's the leader of the Society of Jesus, which means a plan, a scheme, evil intent, immorality, etc. And then the second number, 2191, in the Black Pope of the Society of Jesus means a serpent, viper, vipers. That's what Yeshua called them, right? And notice when you put in the Vatican, a brood of vipers, you get 2154 again, which means a plan, device, evil intent, immorality, lustful crimes. And we're going to see those crimes. The 9/11 Commission report didn't show you the real culprits. We will. Let's go to the next slide. Let's see. Okay, Jesuits. They're called the Company. Notice that? The Society of Jesus. Jesuits are sometimes referred to colloquially as God's soldiers, God's Marines, or the Company. Okay, notice, so you put in the Company, Society of Jesus, Vatican Assassins, you get 3006, the number of the original sons, who inspired this whole you're going to see this whole worldwide circle or district web, how they put it all together. Yahweh's going to show it to you, okay? Let's go to the next slide. You remember the word intrigue, cabal, conspiracy, and plot? 1443, which means Masons. And then when you mirror it, you get Jesuits. Then intrigue means a plot or scheme. You get 823, which is Daniel 8:23. In the last days of their kingdom, when the transgressors have reached their fullness, this king of fierce expression and understanding dark sentences, skilled in trickery and deception, will stand up. Did you know that Pope Francis is the first Jesuit pope? What a coincidence, right? So, Jesuit skilled in trickery, or Jesuit skilled in intrigue, trickery, deception, 3006, the tag number of the original sons. And also 2714, which means finding out, to search, investigated, probe, seek out, to find out. Did you know that every intelligence agency in the world is owned by the Vatican? Did you know that? Including, well, let me get too far ahead of myself. Well, let me go and show you something. Can I show something on the monitor real quick? I didn't show you this last time. I was holding it back. Now I know why I did. The other number, when you put in mirror and you put in the number of the Masons and it mirrors, you put in both the numbers, you get 911. But you also get 4527, which means Mossad. Well, who's the Mossad? It's Israeli intelligence. Well, let's continue here. So we see a plot, a scheme, 823, okay, which is Daniel 8:23. And if you look at 2714 in the Greek, it means down in the eye, like in the eye of Jupiter. You know how it's always watching everything? And they call it the Holy See because they have eyes everywhere. Remember we showed that? This beast with eyes everywhere, the little horn with eyes all around. Remember that? Okay, let's go to the next slide. This is from the 15th book of Israel, chapter 20, verse 26. It says, pastor says, like the Jesuit priesthood was created to actually do the murders for the Catholic Church. And the Jesuit priesthood actually became stronger than those who paid for them. That's the reason we're seeing a Jesuit priest as a pope now. Before him, they had a man named Benedict that was actually one of Hitler's boys. I don't know if anyone knew that or not, but there's quite a bit of history on him. And there's quite a bit of history on Francis in Argentina, backing up the Nazis that were shipped there from Nazi Germany to hide out. You can look up the dirty war of Argentina and find out the thousands of people that were disappeared under Pope Francis's reign as a cardinal there. So Pope and the Holy, so let's look at these numbers. 3710 means to be angry. It means a fixed anger. That means it's a settled opposition. They're in constant opposition. Enrage, wrath, vengeance, to reach out after. To reach out after who? Well, the heretics. The heretics. Who's a heretic? You, me, everyone that lives by the laws of Yahweh or has a menorah or, something to show that they're worshiping Yahweh. And then 3735 means hills, the 7 hills, right? That's who this is identifying. And the third number, 2226, or the second number, 2226, means Zerah. And you remember Zerah, that son of Yada, the Zerahite, 666. Remember the scarlet thread? We'll learn more about that later. Notice, the third number, 2335, means a keeper of records. Well, that's what the Vatican does. The Jesuits do. They keep records. That's what all the intelligence agencies do, right? From 2374 means to see, a sea. Remember the Holy See? Air quotes on holy. Pope and the Holy See, 911. 911, Let's look at the next slide. It says, I will this is the oath of the Jesuit order right here that actually Kahan Yehuda showed us years back. This is the actual, the entire Jesuit Jesuit oath that they take. Okay, notice I'm taking a couple excerpts here. I will secretly use the poison cup, the strangulating cord, the steel of the poniard, or the leaden bullet, regardless of the honor, rank, dignity, or authority of the person or persons that I'm going to murder, basically. Whatever may be their condition in life, either public or private, as if at any time may be directed to do so by my agent or by any agent of the Pope or superior of the Brotherhood of the Holy Faith of the Society of Jesus. When you put in that quote, you get 2254, and it's the Hebrew word cabal. Remember this cabal, this organization, this society, this secret society called the Jesuits. And it means to bind, pledge, band, to pervert, destroy, and bring forth. Yes, they're bringing forth a plan, okay, a new world order, as we saw in Daniel 8:23. And notice another quote out of this oath. It says, make and wage relentless war secretly or openly against all heretics. All heretics. So that quote there is 666. Now the Jesuit order, it shows, is the military arm of the Catholic Church. Put in the military arm of the Catholic Church, you get 1538, the very year that they were founded. Okay, now this first number in this Jesuit oath here, this long oath, you can't read it, you can go and put it in yourself. 5010 means order, an ancient military term of an ordered troop or cohort. Remember, this is an army. From 5021, to ordain, devoted, place in a position, a military term meaning to draw up an order, to assign an order. So it's a military term. The second number, 3006, is the number of the secret tag of the original sons of Yahweh. And the third number, 3037, means chosen, acquaintances, cohabit, discipline, investigate, cunning, know, and observe. Does that tell you everything about intelligence and spying? Let's go to the next slide. I put in the synonym for cabal right there for you from Webster's dictionary, and I got 2420, which is the word used in Daniel 8:23. Sinister schemes, dark sayings, speech, intrigue, tricks. So to act secretly through plotting, which is what they do, these cabals, you get 2256, and it means a cord, a band, a territory, a line, a rope, a noose, a company, a district. And you know, when a Freemason is actually initiated into Freemason lodges, they put a rope around his neck and tie one around his waist. And it's all about tying and binding them to this organization, this brotherhood, secrecy. It's about binding them in secrecy. Okay, when you put in all those definitions I just gave you about pledges and perverts and destroys to act secretly through plotting, you get 2268, which means company, association, a band, a charmer company, a society. Remember the Society of Jesus. To tie a magic knot or spell. And the third number, 1146, is from 1129, which means builders. Remember, it was used in Psalm 118, 26, I believe, where it says, the stone which the builders rejected. Remember, the builders were the masons. Let's go to the next slide. When they take that oath, there's a Jesuit flag that's by them, and it has this on it right here, INRI, it says, which is, they try to tell you it means Jesus. Well, to the Masons, it's a Latin term which means Eustrum, Nexar, Regis, and Pius, basically. When you put that in your matria, what it actually means, it is just to exterminate or annihilate impious or heretical kings, governments, or rulers, is what it means in Latin. The first number, 1326, means end, destruction, desolation, and waste. The second number is 6634, and it's the word pater, patar. Remember Peter? Goes all the way back to Egypt, this Egyptian cabal. Patar means to open up or to interpret. Remember, Peter was given the keys by Zeus, Jesus, to translate this scripture or interpret scripture. And notice down here on the bottom, the meaning of Peter. The meaning of Peter. What did the word Pator or Peter really mean to the ancients? Surprisingly enough, the word is in the Bible. When Moshe wrote about the Egyptian priests, he shows they were called Peters or interpreters. interpreters of the ancient Egyptian mysteries. Notice Genesis 41:8. Davidson shows in his Hebrew lexicon that the consonantal word patar or Peter signifies to interpret or interpretation, and he shows in Bryant's page 308 points out the term always relates to oracle interpretation. You notice, when you put that in the imagery, I showed that a year ago, and it comes out 3006, the tag number of the original sons. And it also means from 4952 in the sense of loosing or to let loose. And then 4952 means to throw violently to the ground. Remember, they cast the truth to the ground, Daniel said. And to rend completely. Yeah, they rendered it completely. They completely rendered that version to fit Zeus's plan. Let's go to the next slide. Hey, did you know Pope Francis has a new book out? I gave it my own review there at the bottom of the book. It's Dove's Dung, 666. It's called Let Us Dream, The Path to a Better Future by Pope Francis. Put that in, you get 2255, and it means cabal. Because he's part of the cabal, right? To destroy, to hurt, to ruin, to bind, to pledge, to ban, to deal corruptly, to pervert and destroy. And notice, the Brotherhood of Death, the Society of Jesus, 2535, Cain. The Cabal of Death, 666. Notice, these Jesuits always have skulls next to them. They always have a skull. Why do they always worship these skulls? Why do they worship death? We'll find out. Let's go to the next slide. So, the Society of Jesus here, it says the Society of Jesus is a religious order of the Catholic Church headquartered in Rome. This is from Wikipedia. The members are called Jesuits. The society is engaged in evangelization and apostolic ministry in 112 nations. Jesuits work in education, research, and cultural pursuits. Notice you get 1753 double, which means energy, working, activity of Satan, that's used in 1 Thessalonians 2:6. When you put in all those definitions, you get 5174, which means divining serpent. When you put in the meanings of serpent, snake, everything from 5174, you get 911. Revelation 9:11 talks about this king that they have over them of the bottomless pit. And then you also get 5556, which means a devastating locust. Let's go ahead and can we flip? Let's go about four slides ahead to the temple destruction. Nope, the temple destruction. Tish B'Av there. I think it's right before that. Yeah, there you go. Did you know that on Tish B'Av, Tisha B'Av is the 9th of Av on the Jewish calendar, both temples were destroyed on the very same day. Both temples on the very same day in history. And that comes out to 9/11. I wonder if that's a coincidence. Let's go to the next slide. We have here, this is the Arch of Titus. Okay, you see that Arch of Titus? Look through that arc and you see that tower back there? The Victory Arch of Titus. You know, when you put in all this meaning from about.com that Pastor always shows, you get 6364, it means Peter. The second number is 3818, and it means not my people. Third number, 3782, means overthrown, to bring down, to make to fall down, cast down. Could you play this video clip, please?
Oh my God!
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! I told you! Oh my God! All these people! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
Oh, it's all...
Okay, let's go to the next slide. Let's see what we see here. We see Ground Zero World Trade Center, 361 Arch. The second number, 2166 Euphrates, which is where they launched the war in the Euphrates. The third number is 2606, which is the number of victims in that Ground Zero attack. 2606, the Society of Jesus, Zeus, 2606. Jorge Mario Bergoglio, first Jesuit Pope, 2606. World Trade Center terrorism, 2001. 2606 means Tower of Hanil. Tower. It's one of the towers of the temple that they destroyed in Jerusalem on 9/11. World Trade Center 1110, to annihilate, lay waste, destroy, and devastate. Let's go to the next slide. I'm almost done. We got to get through this. The Tower of Hananel, the Twin Towers, same numbers again. 361 Arch, 2166 Euphrates, 3698 means to lay waste. Then you see the sign of the Jesuits here to the left, in hoc signo vinces, which means in this sign conquer. Same number as World Trade Center, 1110, to lay waste and destroy. You see the 3 nails at the bottom of that symbol? You get 666, 3 nails. The World Trade Center terrorists, who were they? Look here, 2274 double. That's the Pharisees, Sadducees, Essenes, and Herodians number. And it means association, company, a band of evil priests, an alliance, a society. When you add up the numbers, you get 4548, you get the word nails. There's the nails right there in their symbolism. Let's go to the next slide. What did he mean by arches? What's he pointing out in the arches? Well, in New York City, you'll see Washington Square Arch. And when you look right through the arch, look what you see. The Twin Towers. First you see them when they existed, then you see them when they're destroyed, then you see the new tower standing in its place called One World Trade Center, Freedom Tower. But what's written on that arch is very interesting. It says, exitus acta probat, which means the outcome justifies the deeds. Our evil is justified by the acts that we do, because in the end, it'll all pay off for God. Notice, arch, the end justifies the means. The outcome justifies the deed. The outcome is the test of the act, 9/11. Notice, 2606, they said they can do immorality to bring forth their kingdom. That's all the negative character traits in the peaceful solution added together. The number of victims on 9/11. Let's go to the last slide, because I know I got to go. Just skip through that one. Skip through that one. I want to leave you hanging here. This is the Trinity site, Ground Zero in Alamogordo, New Mexico, where they blew up the first atomic weapon in 1945. And to the right is Ground Zero, where Trinity Church in New York City, called the Little Chapel that stood, and you see the One World Trade Center right next to it. This is at Ground Zero. What a coincidence, right? Well, you're going to find out that all of this was planned by the original sons, and it's very, very, very evil. But one final thing before I go. Can I see the monitor? I showed you about this 9/11 in Mossad, right? Yesterday was 9/11. It was Samuyl, 9th moon, the 11th day. And Mossad is being accused of killing this man right here. This nuclear scientist, Mohsen Farizadeh Mohammadi. His number comes out to 9/11. And 1260 is the last 1260 days we're in right now, right? Mossad, remember, they're being accused right now. Jerusalem Post, Iran has become Mossad's street corner. You think all that's a coincidence, House of Yahweh? I hope the 9/11 Commission was listening. This will probably put them on the track. Maybe they can go to the Vatican and ask some questions about these dirty deeds that have been done, these horrible, rotten. And I can see why Pastor cries when he talks about the 4 horns. If everybody would please stand, it's been an honor and privilege to speak to you today. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to the great Gohan Michael Hawkins.
The Jesuits, they might consider themselves as a hidden society, but Yahweh's way is light. And there's nothing that's going to be hidden from Yahweh's house. You know, we reveal the truth of everything that takes place out there, you know, so they can't hide their sin. Yahweh knows everything, you know. So to further our learning, to get more light on this, turn it over to great Kahan Yehuda Hawkins.
Shalom. In your book of Yahweh, please turn to page 551, and we will be following by page 559. We're going to look at, first we're going to look at Isaiah 34, verses 16 and 17, and then Isaiah 45, verse 17, if you have a Bible and want to make a note or put a page marker there. Isaiah 34, verses 16 and 17 will read thus. Search out the book of Yahweh and read. Not one of these will be neglected, for it is written, Yahweh is their shepherd, and they shall not want. For his mouth has commanded it, and his word has gathered them. In other words, they're called out according to the word that was written. He has cast the lot for them, and his hand has divided it among them with a measuring line. They will possess it forever. From generation to generation, they will dwell in it. Well, they don't tell you what you're staying in. That's the King James Version, of course. The prepositional phrase in it that is written in Isaiah 34:17 is translated from the Hebrew compound word baha, and it has nothing to do with a place in Mexico. The word is composed of the Hebrew word ba, which is written by the letter bet in Hebrew, combined with the Hebrew word ha, which is the letter hey. The Hebrew word ba is listed on pages 171, 172 of a Hebrew and Chaldee lexicon to the Old Testament by Julius First, which shows this word is both a preposition that means in and a noun that is a short form of the Hebrew word bayit, which means house. The Hebrew word ha is listed on page 342 of a Hebrew and Chaldee lexicon to the Old Testament by Julius First, which shows this word is an ancient form of the name Yahweh. And in some lexicons, they don't write the name, they just write the letter hey. So this is what, so remember also, in the Hebrew lexicons, the word bayit, it also means house of Yahweh. The same Hebrew dictionary by Julius First says that also. Now, this is what Isaiah verses 34, 16, and 17 is saying. Search out the book of Yahweh and read. Not one of these will be neglected, for his mouth, for it is written, Yahweh is their shepherd, they shall not want. Psalm 23, verse 1. For his mouth has commanded it, and his word has gathered it. He has cast the lot for them, and his hand has divided that among them with a measuring line. They will possess it, the book of Yahweh, forever. From generation to generation will it, the book of Yahweh, dwell in the house of Yahweh. All right, let's go on. Now turn to page 559, please. Page 559. Isaiah 45, verse 17, page 559 in your book of Yahweh. It reads, But Israel will be saved by Yahweh with an everlasting salvation. You will not be ashamed nor confounded to the world without end. In other words, the world is never going to end giving you a hard time. Well, that's not exactly what it says. First of all, the word but in this word is written in italics, which means that it has been added and should be removed. And here's a big one. The word Israel that is written in Isaiah 45:17 is translated from the Hebrew name Yisrayl. This word is listed on page 622 of a Hebrew and Chaldee lexicon to the Old Testament by Julius First, which shows this word as a meaning is emphatically the true, pious, faithful Israel, and so a title of honor for the select of the people. In other words, the called out ones. 1 Timothy 3, verse 15. And there's something important about that. The word confounded that is written in Isaiah 45:17 is translated from the Hebrew word takalamu. This word is listed on page 663 of a Hebrew and Chaldee lexicon to the Old Testament, the Julius verses, so it means, and there is want of nothing. Seems like they like Psalm 23, verse 1 in these scriptures quite a bit, which is a wonderful thing. The prepositional phrase to thee that is written in Isaiah 45:17 has been added and must be removed. The Hebrew word od that is written in Isaiah 45:17, this word was not even translated. It does not appear into translations at all, but it's there in the Hebrew. This word is listed on page 587 of the Analytical Hebrew and Chaldee Lexicon by Benjamin Davison, which shows this word means unto an eternity. So this is what Isaiah 45, verse 17 is saying. Remember what the book of Yahweh said. Remember, it is written, Yahweh is their shepherd, they shall not want, and that the book of Yahweh will be with the house of Yahweh forever. I never heard it said it had to be in the Vatican or wherever other religions have capitals, but it says it will be with the house of Yahweh forever. We'll start. Yahweh will honor whom he has called out, and who are true, faithful and reverent of him, by calling you Israel. That's why the town of Israel was named after all of you. And Pastor gladly knows this and preaches it every time, doesn't he? He doesn't keep it for himself. It's for every one of you that said, as for me and my house, we will serve Yahweh. You will be saved by Yahweh with an everlasting salvation. You will not be ashamed, nor shall you ever want, for unto you will be a world without end. That's what the book of Yahweh is all about. Remember, Yahweh tells you, let your word be your bond. Yahweh gave you his word, a contract, a promise. You search out and read, that means to study the book of Yahweh, and start walking in his ways, remembering the whole bottom line is reverence Yahweh, keeping all of his laws, as it says in Ecclesiastes, for this is the duty of all men who want to reverence him. If you do these things, the deal he's made with you is you will live forever in a perfect world. May Yahweh bless your understanding. And I turn the services over to the great Kohan Michael, or return the services.
Praise Yahweh. A world without end. I like that, because this world is a mess, that we're living in now. But Yahweh's way is coming, and brethren, that's going to be such a joy to get into that kingdom, to see that thing. So to further our learning about what's going on in the world, we turn it over at this time to great Kohan Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please be seated. The peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. Looking into the news, of course, we see many things taking place, a lot of prophecy being fulfilled, but we want everyone to concentrate and just remember the last time Pastor spoke, the United States had just a little over 10 million cases. And Pastor was explaining on how these numbers are going to have to pick up. They're going to have to pick up considerably before these things actually start taking hold of the world like prophecy shows they would. Now I want to show you something because this is very interesting. Now this right here is just a release of the United States COVID cases. And you'll notice when you have holidays, pagan holidays, Memorial Day, 4th of July, you get spikes. So you have the holiday, then a couple weeks later you get the spikes. Then you had Halloween. And look at the spike here. And when you watch the news, watch the travel, watch the no social distancing. Watch how they're gathering together to worship their gods, because now they're going to build from Thanksgiving, which the news called the mother of all super spreaders. They're going to build up into the month where the gods will descend upon the earth, the month of December. And then, of course, they're going to gather to worship their God for December 25th. But watch these numbers, because there's a drastic change here. Before this took place, Pastor said it would take place, and I want you to write it down. Last time he spoke, there was just over 10 million COVID cases here in the United States. And I want to show you, not just in the United States is this spiking, but this is the global coronavirus. And it says global coronavirus cases past 60 million. Notice the spike here, how drastic it gets. And I want to show you one that's blown up, because you'll see the pace in which it's going. And this is put out by the Johns Hopkins University. And notice it says it took 6 weeks for cases to go from 10 to 20 million, but less than 3 weeks to go from 50 to 60 million. Now that's globally. But we're going to also take a look at the United States in the news, because here we're going to show a timeline. And you're going to see there was a great timeline that NBC did that goes back to the 2nd of the 11th Roman month and goes up to the 14th. And it shows, watch even the tone of the newscasters showing this rapid growth. And of course, this is what Pastor's been saying, to where you go from record set on this day, the 17th of November, record set 184,000 cases. And then the next day, record set on this day. And then the next day, record set on this day. And they keep showing how it's building and building. And you'll see them use words like COVID accelerates. COVID has become aggressive. Virus has become aggressive. Hospitals filling up. Watch when you see the nurses and doctors that are dealing with this COVID, they're pretty much mentally done. They're exhausted. The one nurse, she says, I don't know what to say when someone is put into ICU, they're in a coma for 2 or 3 days, and when they wake up, as soon as they can speak, they try to tell everyone it's fake. It's not real. And you can see it on her face, and she tells the news reporter, she said, this is hard. And you can tell they're mentally breaking down, but watch what everyone's saying. The hospitals are maxed. There's not enough room. They're pretty much exhausted. It says 1 in 5 hospitals are in dire straits right now, which means they're pretty much maxed out. And it hasn't even began getting to the peak yet. This is gradually building. It's going to get much, much worse. And then, of course, when you get up to Thanksgiving Day, the build up to Thanksgiving Day, everybody wants to visit. Remember what was brought out about visiting? Well, everybody wants to visit and spread the love, so to speak. Well, you're going to see that even the news, scientists are saying, whatever you do, stay separate. Don't travel. Well, of course, they don't listen, because they've been taught from the beginning, you can do whatever you want to and you're not going to die. Surely you won't die. Now, COVID's not going to kill them, and we'll get to that at the end of the news, but they've been taught to not follow instructions. That's what society has been taught to do. If someone tells you you have to do something, you don't have to do it. You do what you want to do. And that's what's been bred into society for 6,000 years. That's been bred into society's mind. Remember the mark of the beast. It's important everyone knows this so you can answer. What did the mark of the beast start with? If you look at chapter 1 of the Mark of the Beast, volume 1, it tells you the mark of the beast started with a lie. That's where it started. It started with a lie. With this building up, you see the COVID numbers going. As the COVID builds up, governments are shutting down, local governments are shutting down, communities are shutting down, people losing their jobs. The food banks, the lines are growing to the food banks. When you see the lines, they're massive. And food banks are now saying, we're running out of food. What are we supposed to do? Well, they run off donations of food. Well, who's donating food? If you think, well, if I don't have food, I'll run out to Walmart and grab it. Look at some pictures at Walmart where you run out to grab it and there's nothing there. Their shelves were empty. That was in Abilene this last week, completely empty. Unless you want to buy ham or something that would give you the mark of the beast. But as it builds up, you're going to see by the end of the week, they show these building up, people lining up, hoping for the COVID vaccine. This COVID vaccine will save us. As they're coming out saying, we might want to tell people, people, before you take this vaccine, you better see what the side effects are. It's not a great thing. It's not a great thing at all. And then one scientist, these Russian scientists are speaking, and the one scientist says, well, the COVID vaccine was going to last you about 6 months. Well, COVID only lasts for 5 months, so how much is the vaccine going to help? Think about what scientists, now these are people developing the vaccines, think about what they're saying compared to what prophecy shows. Because the scientist also says, we need to get one thing straight here. COVID doesn't kill, it finishes you off. And who said that first? Well, a pastor said it. Now, this was written, think about this, this was written in 96 AY, that it doesn't kill, that it would torment you. Please pay close attention and watch how this is skyrocketing. It's growing and it's building, and there's nothing someone can do to escape it except repent from sin and fulfill the prophecies given in Micaiah 4, verses 1 through 3, which is seek out the house of Yahweh and come to learn of Yahweh's way. At this time, if we could please play the news.
On Labor Day, we had 32,000 cases a day in this country reported. At that time, I was already saying that this was going to be the darkest months ahead.
The flu's not going to stop for COVID. Pneumonia's not going to stop. The strokes aren't going to stop. Nothing's stopping for COVID. So you already are going into a busy season, and now you have COVID on top of it.
On the eve of the election, COVID surging to all-time highs. Hospitals warning they may ration care. For voters, the pandemic is front and center as it continues to explode across the country yet again.
Every statistic is a patient.
We're all trying to keep our cool on the outside. On the inside, we're like, got so many patients I need to see.
For the first time, the U.S. surpassing 100,000 new COVID cases in a single day.
The moment that we are in is unique in history. There's really nothing that could have prepared us for this.
For the second time in just 2 days, the U.S. hitting over 120,000 new COVID cases in just 24 hours.
This is why we went into medicine, to take care of patients, to step up when others needed us. We took an oath to do so, and that's why we're here.
Tonight, coronavirus cases climbing in nearly every corner of the country.
What we're seeing now is what happened, a couple of weeks ago, and it's going to be getting even more because of this widespread spiking that is occurring.
We're going to look back one day and say to ourselves, oh my God, 100,000 cases a day? I wish we were back there at that point. This is not to scare people out of their wits. This is to scare people into their wits to understand that.
I think that every state's getting hit really hard, and you really can't walk by a TV screen without seeing a nurse or a doctor saying that they're overwhelmed and they're reaching capacity.
The whole reason why public health experts recommend practicing these preventive measures so we can avoid what we're seeing right now. Not only don't we want human suffering, but we know that we have a limited number of staff, a limited number of beds, a limited number of ventilators.
Let's start with the good stuff, since we don't often have good COVID news to discuss. This vaccine news could not come at a better time.
Even if the shots were available tomorrow, Allison, we would still have months where we had to wait to get the benefits of those vaccines. Then the body has to rev up. It's like building, your muscles. You don't just go overnight to ripped and built. It can take several weeks. That's exactly what the immune system needs to do.
What to do about the coronavirus pandemic. While all of us have been focused on the presidential election, the pandemic situation is getting dire, and more dire. Let's take a look at the map right now, a different map than presidential politics. 42 states trending in the wrong direction right now, meaning more new coronavirus infections now compared to a week ago. It's everywhere. You see it, 42 states, 8 holding steady, 0. No states, none of the 50 states heading in the right direction. This chart is just depressing. You see the first peak in April, the summer surge. Yesterday, another record, 126,000 plus new infections reported in the United States. And you don't need the numbers, just look at that red line, heading straight up at a moment of crisis for the country. 30 states hit a record in their 7-day average of new cases in this last week. 30 of the 50 states hitting a new record in new infections in this past week. And with new cases come hospitalizations. 22 of those states reporting records in hospitalizations. The crisis is growing at a time the country now in a presidential transition. Look at this positivity map. We spent a lot of time on maps, red states, blue states. This is pain in lots of states. 37% positivity in Idaho, 34%, 53% in South Dakota, 46% in Iowa, 37% in Kansas. You just see a lot of blue and gray. That means more people getting tested or coming back positive, which means more cases today, more infections tomorrow, and it spreads.
There are new pleas for Americans to change their behavior as the COVID crisis accelerates across the country. For the fourth straight day Friday, a new record for daily infections. Every single state seeing a surge. Total cases now top 10 million. The death toll, more than 245,000. The worst in the world. CBS's Danya Backus has the latest.
The COVID crisis in this country is accelerating out of control. Every state feeling the pain. Record after record shattered as cases and hospitalization surge. In North Dakota, an about face. Governor Doug Burgum issuing a new mandate in the red-hot COVID state to wear masks starting today.
Our situation has changed, and we must change with it.
New Mexico's governor calling what's happening in her state critical.
We are in a life or death situation.
Same story in Utah. The state had its deadliest week so far in the pandemic. Staffed ICU beds there are full, so the governor had to call in 200 traveling nurses. Nationwide, infections now averaging more than 140,000 a day. That's a jump of 75% in 2 weeks.
At this point, it's a sign of disrespect if you're not wearing your mask.
Rachel Thane is a respiratory therapist in Idaho, where the National Guard has been mobilized to help with the coronavirus response.
I'm going to contract COVID in the community, unfortunately.
That state's governor, Brad Little, is appealing for common sense.
This comes down to personal responsibility. Please wear a mask when you're around another person who's not in your household.
Here in the West, there are new travel restrictions. Governors of California, Oregon, and Washington State telling travelers to stay away.
And even though there's optimism about that new vaccine tonight, the U.S. is now averaging nearly 150,000 new COVID infections per day. CBS's Carter Evans is in Utah tonight, where hospitals are now overrun. Good evening, Carter.
Good evening, Nora. Intensive care units across the country are filling up. Here in Utah, the number of COVID patients in ICU has doubled in the last month. They have a respiratory triage center set up in the parking lot of this hospital, anticipating a surge of COVID patients. Utah is shattering records and cases are skyrocketing. A quarter of new test results are now positive. As ICUs fill up, healthcare workers are feeling the strain.
We're tired, mentally, physically, emotionally exhausted.
Nurses Nate Smithson and Janine Roberts work at Intermountain Medical Center, Utah's largest hospital, where for some patients, even the cold COVID reality still isn't real.
They deny it, their family members deny it.
Well, we have these patients who literally are on life support. We're working super hard to get them better, finally helping them to wake up, and then the first thing they're trying to communicate is that it's all a hoax.
This really affects you.
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah.
The stress is being felt around the nation.
This thing is going crazy. It's spreading like wildfire.
In St. Louis, residents are now being urged to stay home.
We have no backup. If we stay on the path that we're on, even just 2 more weeks, we will not have the staff we need to care for patients.
In El Paso, it's not just hospitals, but the coroner is also overwhelmed. Inmates are being paid $2 an hour to load bodies into mobile morgues. In California, cases have doubled in the past 10 days. Tonight, Governor Gavin Newsom is halting most of the state's efforts to reopen.
We are now moving backwards, not forwards.
Michigan is now imposing new lockdown measures, severely limiting indoor gatherings. In Washington, the governor is announcing an immediate shutdown of gyms, theaters, bowling alleys, and indoor dining.
If you act early, you can save lives. And if you don't, you'll be swamped by a tsunami of this virus.
And the pandemic is continuing to take an economic toll. This line in Dallas is for food. Local officials say they served 25,000 people, while shelves of basic supplies are emptying fast in Chicago as the city's stay-at-home order takes effect today. Back in Utah, Dr. Brandon Webb says there is still pushback over the state's new mask mandate. What do you want people to know right now?
It's no longer about politics. I have seen more human suffering in the hospital in the last month than I've seen in my career. I have seen more human suffering in the hospital in the last month than I've seen in my career.
We are going to begin with breaking news. Tonight, the White House Coronavirus Task Force says the spread of the virus is aggressive, unrelenting, and expanding nationwide. In a series of private reports obtained by CBS News, the president's advisors warned not enough is being done to stop it. As we come on the air tonight, 1 out of every 10 Americans now being tested for COVID-19 has it. And in many cities, just getting a test takes hours. Hospitals say they are now on the brink, treating 73,000 coronavirus patients tonight. That is another sobering new record. And with the situation now at a breaking point, more states and cities are cracking down, issuing new restrictions as new infections skyrocket. Ohio's governor has just issued a 3-week statewide curfew. Iowa and North Dakota are mandating masks. And in New Orleans, the famed Mardi Gras parades are already being canceled tonight, 3 months before they're set to start. Still, the nation's top infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, now says that the U.S. needs a nationwide strategy to beat the virus and can no longer rely on a state-by-state approach.
Despite the terrifying upward trend in coronavirus cases and deaths, many officials are still reluctant to take action that could save lives. Carter Evans is in Twin Falls, Idaho, where the numbers are alarming. Carter, good morning.
Good morning. Community spread here in Idaho is severe. Numbers from the COVID tracking project suggest there are 85,000 cases statewide. That basically means 2 out of every 5 people tested in Idaho are now positive for COVID-19.
Americans are being devastated by the coronavirus at levels once considered unthinkable. More than 187,000 new cases were reported yesterday, and that is a new record. We're also seeing increased deaths, more than 2,000 people just yesterday. That's a number that the experts had warned we would hit by Christmas.
The Coronavirus Task Force held its first public briefing yesterday in months. It came as the CDC issued a blunt new warning, telling Americans not to travel for Thanksgiving.
Tonight, a brutal reality in the war against COVID. 1 in 5 U.S. hospitals is facing a staffing shortage.
We can turn areas that aren't hospital areas into hospital areas, but if we don't have the people to take care of the patients, it doesn't matter.
Since the pandemic began, an army of traveling nurses has rushed in. First to New York City, where they were cheered daily. Then to other hotspots.
When I was in New York, people seemed a lot more supportive of healthcare workers.
Right now, traveling nurse Lauren Wildeboer is in South Texas in a COVID unit.
A lot of people say that COVID is a hoax, that masks don't work, that masks are politicized. It's frustrating trying to correct people.
Throughout the country, there are 40 to 50,000 traveling nurses taking on assignments. But now, during the pandemic, they're in demand like never before. According to Trusted Health, a nursing job posting site, the nurses' fees are now twice as much as pre-COVID levels. Right now, there are thousands of open jobs.
The supply of nurses is being tapped out. They're on assignment doing the heroic work that they've been doing for the now 9 months. The front lines are seeing death daily.
With North Dakota allowing infected but asymptomatic workers to treat COVID patients, 60 Air Force nurses are now headed to that state as backup.
We're tired, we're physically and emotionally exhausted, we're pretty much at our breaking point.
We begin tonight with millions of Americans on the move, ignoring warnings and pleas from health experts to stay home this Thanksgiving. The consequences could be deadly. Take a look at this. This is the airport in Tulsa, Oklahoma today. It's jammed with people. It's a similar story in several cities. At the same time, the COVID outbreak uncontrolled. New cases Saturday topping 181,000. Total cases in the U.S. now well over 12 million. The death toll more than 256,000. And despite hopeful news about breakthrough vaccines and treatments, America appears to be facing its toughest test ahead. Lilia Luciano leads us off.
Americans refusing to let the COVID crisis ground them, packing airports across the country despite the CDC's plea to stay at home.
I get it, but it's Thanksgiving and people want to be with their families.
2 million passengers took flights so far this weekend. This behavior worries Washington Governor Jay Inslee.
We have to understand that the house is on fire right now.
Deaths are now climbing in 43 states and Puerto Rico. Hospitalizations are at a record high and jumping in every state. Dr. Anthony Fauci telling Face the Nation the numbers speak for themselves.
We're in a very, very difficult situation at all levels. Just look at the numbers, look at the facts.
Texas reaching almost 13,000 cases Saturday alone. In El Paso, with a backlog of over 230 deaths, the Texas National Guard activated to assist with the overflow of bodies at the morgue. Defiance across California, where cases have tripled over the last month.
The 10 o'clock curfew, we're not going to abide by it. It's ridiculous.
Protesters burning masks in Orange County. Restrictions crippling the economy, making many Americans anxious.
It's not easy. I lost my job. I had like 4 months with no income.
Dire new benchmarks in the nation's battle with the coronavirus. There are now more than 12 million infections in the United States. That's 1 million more new cases since Sunday. There were more than 195,000 infections reported on Friday alone. Hospitalizations topped 82,000, and there have now been 1,600 deaths a day since Sunday. In California, where 10 p.m. curfews to help flatten the curve begin tonight, drivers waited in long lines at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles for drive-through testing on Friday.
Tonight, the CDC has a grim prediction. The U.S. death toll from COVID could hit 321,000 by mid-December. By then, hospitals could be overflowing with patients in many parts of the country. Here's CBS's Adriana Diaz.
At Chicago's Rush University Medical Center, they've set up a COVID triage area in the lobby. They're making room for an expected post-Thanksgiving surge.
There are 19 patients waiting for a bed right now because we don't have any upstairs.
Dr. Meeta Shah works in the emergency room.
There is a kind of overwhelming sense of apprehension as to what's going to come in the next 10 days.
In California, health officials expect shortages in nurse-staffed ICU beds in the next 2 weeks.
We have a full ICU of people with COVID on ventilators who are fighting for their lives. So this is real.
The state hit a record for daily cases yesterday. Overnight, the Supreme Court, now with Justice Amy Coney Barrett, blocked New York's strict congregation restrictions on houses of worship, which the court said were being treated more harshly than stores and gyms.
We're going to begin with the breaking news. With millions of Americans on the move tonight, health experts worry what is usually one of the country's biggest nights for travel may also become one of its most dangerous. As we come on the air tonight, one doctor is warning Thanksgiving will become the mother of all super spreader events as people let down their guard and their masks. But even before Americans gather around the table tomorrow, the rate of new cases of coronavirus is growing astronomically tonight. 2.3 million people have been infected nationwide in just the past 2 weeks. 2.3 million people have been infected nationwide in just the past 2 weeks. 2.3 million people have been infected nationwide in just the past 2 weeks. And more than 2,000 have been reported dead in the past 24 hours. That's the highest single-day death toll in more than 6 months. We're going to begin tonight with breaking news. The CDC has called an emergency meeting on Tuesday so an advisory committee can vote on which Americans should get a corona vaccine first, if one is approved by the FDA next month. The last-minute meeting comes as the U.S. shatters another record tonight. More than 13 million Americans have now been infected by the virus, as a surge of new cases nationwide shows no signs of slowing down.
In Russia, there have been almost 2 million coronavirus cases since the spring. Moscow has the highest number of victims. The Republic of Buryatia in eastern Russia has become the first to impose another lockdown, closing restaurants, shopping centres and places of mass gathering for 2 weeks. We spoke with some of the country's top virologists on the development of a vaccine and when we could get a hold on the pandemic.
There are now 100 vaccines in the world. Yours, the Gamaleya Institute, was the first which declared it had developed one. But this is very important. The vaccine was still unfinished. It was in the third phase of testing, yet the president said that we have a vaccine. How come?
It is politics, not science. I can just comment about the scientific part. We had the opportunity for quicker development. You take the virus out of a cell culture and clean it. You take the virus out of a cell culture and clean it. And when you inject the person with it, the virus won't multiply.
And you say that long-term immunity is formed?
How long and how strong the immunity is still the subject of study.
It is still a question.
Yes, it is still in question, but antibodies develop, T-cell immunity develops, and we can be sure that a person after vaccination will be safe for some time, at least for half a year. At least for half a year.
But this virus will never disappear from our population. It is another virus which we need to live with.
We are dealing with a virus that adapts to humans due to its evolutionary orientation.
How many years will it take before it stops killing people over 65, the overweight, people with diabetes, and people with cardiovascular diseases?
The issue is not with the virus, but with the human body itself. You need to understand, the coronavirus does not kill you, it finishes you. You need to understand, the coronavirus does not kill you, it finishes you. You need to understand, the coronavirus does not kill you, it finishes you. You need to understand, the coronavirus does not kill you, it finishes you.
At this time, if everyone would please stand, but did everybody hear that, scientist? The coronavirus doesn't kill you, just as Revelations 9:5 says, and brought forth from Yahweh's spokesman. That's the only place you can get this information. And at this time, I would like to introduce the greatest teacher in the world, the great Kahan Yisrayl, Abel Hawkins.
Praise Yahweh! You're a beautiful sight. The peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. Please be seated. If the world don't start believing after all they've seen here this morning, I don't know what else to do. They're experimenting, so it's getting them into trouble day after day, more trouble, and the experimentations is as bad as the virus. Then they put it in people, and it gets worse. Still, even worse when it's in people. So this is what we're facing right now. We really need to show Yahweh our praise. Let's do it big time. Yahweh, they're all yours. Teach them, Father Yahweh. Praise Yahweh. If I can find that top article, I wanted to show you that first. This came in just 55 minutes ago. I ran the news, Kohan Eliah Holler, showed the news about the assassination of the Iranian leader, top Iranian leader, and of course it says at the top of this article, revenge revenge is now what's on their mind, the biggest thing. That's what Genesis 4 says also. Revenge, retaliation, that's what Cain chose to begin with. Please get this. Get this. You got to get this. If you don't, you're going to lose out with the world. The kingdoms that Yahweh is offering right now to mankind, they're going to take over the universe. These kingdoms are not just, an army or a law force. These are the kingdoms that run the universe right now. They are kingdoms that run the earth. You see them in action. The Democrats, the Republicans, the different nations that has been given power through, of course, their power is coming from the serpent. That's what Revelation 13 shows you. That's what she teaches you in Genesis 1. Is coming from her. Their authority is coming from her. Yahweh said when he presented his plan for you, naturally there'd be kingdoms that are involved, and they're going to be saying, well, why don't you give it to someone here? Why create somebody that's lesser than to give all this power to? Because he told them, I'm going to give mankind this power, and this power, mankind, is going to bring peace to the whole universe. Well, why wouldn't you give it to your sons? So he gave it to his sons. He already had it planned before they asked. He proved his sons, and he said to you and I, he said, asked about my sons. Well, they had already asked. The kingdoms of the heavens had already asked him, and he proved it. He didn't even have to give it to them. He just created the earth, and they went and made a hellhole out of it. In the beginning, Yahweh created the earth, and it became, with the sons of Yahweh, it became without form and void. Evil was on every mountain. I'm talking about the earth. Yes, mankind wasn't the first inhabitants. Yahweh's original sons that you also see described in the book of Job. But they were the original inhabitants, and look what they created in the dinosaur. It looks more like a Hollywood cartoon of killing. You see a man with horns like a bull, or a big mouth and big teeth that he can kill with, and this is what they were inventing. Same thing that Hollywood is doing, using their imagination and bringing it to watch as if it's something valuable. So they said, well, how about your wife? She's a great leader. She's got a third of the people in heaven, the kingdoms in heaven, will be with her already if you just turn it over to her. Okay. So what did she do with it? He tells you. He tells you right in the beginning. He describes what you're going to take over. This is not just as a Christian, you know, well, the Lord so loved, and so Hollywood loved the mankind that he giveth his only begotten Son. You know, it's almost sickening to have to hear it coming from their mouth, and they don't understand a thing about salvation. Salvation is a changing of kingdoms that will actually bring where mankind is going to be given full power, those that qualify, of course, those that are least in all the kingdoms of the earth, the least beings, much less than his original sons and his wife. And Yahweh is training you right now, you, the least in the universe. He's training you right now. Why would he train you instead of them now? He's already proved them. He's proved that mankind also, not in experimenting, he proved it beforehand. And he told them, the kingdoms of heaven, what mankind is going to do when I'm finished with him. Yes, he told them everything. And this is proven to be true because the ones that have lived and died fulfill this already. Even up to Yeshua himself. He was willing to go through great torture. Yeshua was, because he saw the glory that this would bring to all the creation everywhere. The pain it would stop, the suffering that would stop. And that's the reason we're tested too, tested and tried. Because if we show one iota of backing down, we're not fit for the kingdom. We're going to have to get it all out of us. And so Yahweh is proving you right now to see if you will train and then do what you're told without letting someone come in and say, here's a better way, more fun, more desirable. Well, that's what already occurred. Now we're going on to the finishing thing. We're down to the finishing line. This 55 minutes ago, Iran's supreme leader vowed revenge over slain scientists. That was foretold to you in the 4th chapter of Genesis. And that 4th chapter of Genesis tells you what is taking place now. And it told you that about 6,000 years ago. And we're seeing it right now. As if, you know, it's being played out for you so you can see and understand and stop doubting and trying to go the other way. Children too. In fact, I see some of the greatest children here, and they're pushing Yahweh's laws, and they see the beauty in them and see what they're going to be doing, and they're really rejoicing about it. This makes me rejoice. Well, in connection with this murder here, this assassination, as they call it, Israelis, ambassadors on alert now. They're on alert because they know they've put themselves out and for war, and they're hoping now, the way they've pushed this, they're hoping that the other nations will agree with them and not turn to Iran against them, because they could wipe them out easily if they did. But of course the prophecy there is already foretold too. I don't know how many are familiar with it. I know all the House of Yahweh members are familiar with what occurs to those who turn against Israel in this time period. That's fully printed. It's written. Everything is going to take place there. Yahweh's not going to be worshipped there. That's one of the things. Israeli ambassadors on alert after Iranian retaliation threats. This is Israel's N12 report. Another one, U.S. now, out of this same fear, deploys USS Minsk to the Persian Gulf as cover for troops leaving Iraq and Afghanistan. I think you were told why they were pulling them out already. This started quite a while ago, several weeks ago. Warning from past comes back to haunt Iran's top nuclear scientists. 2 years after Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu first named Moshan as the father of Iran's nuclear project, he's been assassinated near Tehran. Well, of course, that's the world. They're getting ready for war, just as the prophecy shows they would. That's one of the 7 plagues that we're facing right now, right along with the coronavirus. The coronavirus and this destruction shown by Daniel, as Yeshua spoke of it in Matthew 24, Matthew 24, this destruction that we're facing. Well, that's what it's taught. That's what these moves right here. That's what Daniel saw, and this was brought out in the Matrix too, that in the days of these kings, the quartet, chapter 8, I hope everyone got that. I think really, well, I know you're doing this. I'm speaking of the people out in, we're speaking to millions of people. We only have I guess a few thousand here, but the millions of people that are hearing this broadcast, they are too in contact with the house of Yahweh, and wanting the legal divining serpent to let them go. And this is number one thing they are always asking: what do I have to do to get loose from this? And more have told us this past week, they're called to get information as to how to do it. Well, the U.S. deaths and the coronavirus, they're just one, but this whole group of 7 plagues now, the whole group of the 7 plagues now it's in the cooking pot and it's ready to serve right now. We have less than 2 years, I do believe, less than 2 years, and I don't mean to be saved. I mean to get ready for the change of these kingdoms, because that's what we're doing. We're getting ready for that. It's not a follow me to the altar and accept Jesus into your heart. Accept the Lord. The Lord is very unclean, both of them. You better take me serious and look it up. Read every word. Yeshua says you're not going to get in Yahweh's kingdom except by every word of Yahweh. Read what it says about the Lord in Daniel, and also the unclean Lord that comes from the pig. That's a teaching that comes from the mouths of the false prophets. Yes, they're both unclean to you and bringing you death, as the scripture says. The number of virus-related deaths, it said, reported in the United States reached 2,000 in the United States now, reached 2,216 in one day. The equivalent of one death every 39 seconds now. Now, this is a drop in the bucket for what you're going to see in just the next few months. This thing is going to be reaching billions, not just thousands, but billions, not millions, billions. I know it's hard for people to grasp that in their mind, but there's 8 billion people right now on Earth, at last count, I believe, but not too long ago. The scripture shows that about 2 billion will be saved out of that 8 billion. So you got 6 billion to cover. I covered that 2 weeks ago. You need to rehearse it. You also need to get this tape and rehearse this, or go online and read it, study it. The highest single-day death count since June 26. June 26 is very important because it shows you how this is tied in. These 7 last plagues is tied in with this signing of the 7-year peace treaty of Daniel. The last 3.5 years that we have, that the waiver was not signed, and it put this last half back into effect because it had been shut down by Netanyahu. When that started, yes, now get this, when that started back up, also we found first evidence of the coronavirus in Italy. Same month. Yes, Yahweh gives you the same month. We're looking now to see if he gives the date and the time. We'll report it. But the 26th, the figure has been climbing relentlessly. Let's see, 26th of June. Write it down. If you find anything on it yourself, let me know. Share it with me. When they failed to sign this waiver in June, that stopped the 7-year peace treaty that was signed to let it stop for 3.5 years, then so many years later start again. When they failed to sign the waiver, the president had to sign the waiver each year to keep the treaty going. That is, the waiver, the shutdown going. If they didn't sign this waiver, the shutdown on it was automatically removed, and a few days later it would go into effect. That's what this is talking about right here. And it's all shown in Daniel 8, Daniel 9, and Daniel 12. Well, that stopped the waiver and allowed the 7-year peace plan to start 3 months later in September. Remember those months in September. The 7-year peace plan and the coronavirus shown to be completed together. It's shown in prophecy to be completed together, and both end at the same time. So they're tied together and support the sickness that brings Babylon, and that was covered real well this morning, city of Babylon, they called it. It came to be called, named a city. That is, they used the name Babylon and put it on their city. But it was just a word originally and meant confusion. And Yahweh said the beginning of this Nimrod teaching was confusion. The beginning of his teaching, the way it's translated, was Babylon. And the people think, well, he started the city Babylon. No, the beginning of his teaching was confusion. And that's why it led all the world into, because all the world is following it, the scripture shows that teaching that began there with Nimrod after the flood now, after the flood, that teaching of confusion went to all the world by the 12 tribes. Yes, the 12 tribes. The 12 tribes, you need to know so much to understand all of this. The 12 tribes were sent down to Egypt. Yes, that's where they came from. They're sent down to Egypt. They learned there and taught the religion, the Catholic religion, God worship. They taught God worship. God worship, Catholic means God worship. They worship all gods. Then Yahweh said, I'll bring them out. I've let them suffer for 400 years. So now I'll bring them out, and I'll give them my way and take all this suffering away from them. He brings them out and offers his laws. They rejected his laws, rejected the one sent, who was Moshe. Read the 7th chapter of Acts. You'll see the whole story plain and clear. From those 12 tribes, who were still Catholic, but at that time had taken over, in Acts 7, they had taken over all the power of the Jerusalem temple. Jerusalem temple is what offered the power of Yahweh. Now, they had taken all of that by force, and they built a huge army in the city of Babylon, and they named it the roving army, that turns out to be the Roman army later, and this became a huge army that supported the 12 tribes who had rulership of the temple, ruling it by force, but they moved to the 7 hills of Rome to get away from Yahweh and the group that kept causing them trouble, that old Hawkins family, the zealous priest of Yahweh. Yes, that's the one that kept bugging them. So they moved, killing, slaughtering all they could there in Israel, destroying Jerusalem, moving the temple and all of its artifacts. Titus was mentioned this morning. General Titus, you could look it up. It'll give you this history. I'm not lying to you. Christian preachers are lying to you, but I don't lie about the scriptures or anything else. The scriptures, they prove me true. The history. Okay, the 7-year peace plan now was signed by the group in Israel. This was in President Clinton's day. Now, this is after they were prophesied to come back to Israel, because Titus got rid of the whole bunch there. The temple, Jerusalem, you'd never know, historians said, that anyone even lived there. But then Yahweh said he's going to bring them back. He started bringing them back in 48. I saw that myself. I was alive. At that time, I was born in 1934. 1948, they started coming back. They started having wars. 1968, they became a nation themselves, but wasn't recognized. Now they are recognized fully due to the President of the United States. The Lord of heaven has taken her seat there again. And Daniel says when this takes place, this is in the time of the coronavirus. Now, with that in mind, we'll go on here. I want you to turn to Daniel, the 9th chapter. Daniel 9, this is a 7-year peace plan. And look at verse 27, Daniel 9:27. Now this was President Clinton, Yasser Arafat, and Rabin, the three leaders that represented the peace plan. They're not the ones that wrote it. The Catholic Church, that was the instrument that put this out. The Catholic Church, their obligations were all taken away later, and the peace plan shut down, just as the prophet said it would, in the midst of the 7-year plan. Well, notice it's a 7-year plan. 27, Daniel 9:27, and he will confirm this peace plan. It's a covenant, confirm a covenant with many. The name Rabin means many. They will confirm a covenant with Rabin, whose name means many, so they translated it many. Kind of throws a little deception there, but you got helps, Bible help, like Strong's Concordance, the Hebrew and Greek Dictionary. Julius First is a great Kohan, David Yehuda Hawkins uses praises so much. He will confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. That's 7 years. If you're reading with me, please do. In the midst of this week, which would be 3.5 years, 3.5 years, in the midst of the week, he will cause the sacrifice, what the people are sacrificing to do this. They gave up their homes, everything, to come and to Israel, move back to Israel, and do this. That's their sacrifices. No, it wasn't an animal, though they might have done some of that too, but it was sacrifices they had agreed to sacrifice themselves to. Oblations or promises to cease. Instead, he will cause the prevalence of the Lord of heaven. The Lord of heaven, even until the destruction. Well, the Lord of heaven is representative. The Lord of heaven sent their representative, which is the God worshipers, of course. They worship the Lord. The word Lord means rabbi. It has nothing to do with Yahweh. If you'd take that word out and put rabbi there, you'd probably understand it better. But it means rabbi, dead rabbis. That's what they worship. And that's what they're following in Israel. It was never a name for Yahweh. The Lord of heaven, even until the destruction, get that, destruction, so there's a prophesied destruction, that is to take place. And that's what we're seeing. That's what these articles here are leading up to. The confusion put forth in the coronavirus, it affects the mind, it causes confusion. It started in Genesis, yes, with Cain, who said, it's more than anyone can bear. Cain himself said, no way to live through this. He saw it. Yahweh told him exactly what was going to take place. Destruction that is determined, that is, Yahweh determined ahead of time and prophesied. He foretold this great destruction. Yeshua said, this destruction is going to be so great, unless Yahweh cuts it short, no flesh will be saved alive. Cain said the same thing, basically. He said, there's no way that a person can live through this. It's more than anyone can bear. The destruction that is determined will be poured. You remember that word poured? Hold your place there and turn over to Revelation 6. This is speaking of the coronavirus. Revelation 16. Revelation 16. Poured. Remember the word. He poured. Destruction is poured upon them. In Revelation 16, verse 1, and I heard the great voice out of heaven, that is the house of Yahweh now. There's a lot of scriptures that goes with this. They're sent from heaven, authorized from heaven, to bring a message here to the earth. So the great voice comes from the house of Yahweh that is authorized, shown, taught, and is fully capable of foretelling what Yahweh shows them, so the people on earth can know in advance what's going to take place. Hear this voice of the house of Yahweh. You can hear it all over the earth now, saying to the seven messengers, that's 7 works of Yahweh, is saying this, go your way and pour. Remember the word pour. Pour out the bowls of wrath of Yahweh. That is the judgment of Yahweh. He's not wrathful. He's just merely saying, you do this, Cain, and you're going to suffer this. He says this throughout. That's the reason I tell you, don't experiment. Experimentation is the worst thing you can do. Try this, it will bring you this. You don't have to experiment with Yahweh. He tells you exactly. You can look and follow it and see it occur. It's proof. You don't need to experiment. Just ask Yahweh and he'll tell you. Okay, pour out the bowl of this judgment. That is, tell the people of Yahweh upon, that's the judgments of Yahweh upon the earth. Pour. Turn back to this Daniel again. Daniel 9 and verse 27. So the Lord of heaven then, the Lord of heaven is even until the prevalence of the Lord of heaven. The prevalence of the Lord of heaven is war. She influenced Cain to war. This is what you're seeing here. Just read you over here. It's getting ready to take place big time. It's been here all along, but now it's going to be like the coronavirus. It's going to get the biggest it's ever been. That's the Lord of heaven bringing this about in hopes of destroying the earth and mankind to keep you, mankind, from taking, from inheriting this great, all of these great kingdoms, being able to lead them away from these wars. Wars are very effective in fulfilling your lust if you got the power to do so. Like the Catholic Church, is the Roman army. The Catholic Church wanted something. They had General Titus and I forgot how many thousand men, soldiers, that went in, killed most of the people, destroyed the cities, plowed it like a field, moved all the artifacts to Rome, plus the temple. Yes, it's there right now. The Lord of heaven, back to Daniel 9:27, oblation, they cause the oblation to cease. Instead, he will cause the prevalence, this is all in the midst of the week now, the prevalence of the Lord of heaven, even until the destruction is poured out. The destruction. If you'll look to Matthew now, let's see, do I want 11? Yes, you got to turn back and look here to chapter 9, and let's read verse 11. Chapter 9, verse 11. Now this is all speaking, of course, of these kingdoms that's been given, allotted. By inheritance we will receive. The inheritance is already made up. We're reading it right here in front of us. It's a written contract to Yahweh's people, to those who will repent, convert, practice the laws of Yahweh. That's who it's for. That qualifies you. That's your mark of inheritance right there. Starts with the Sabbath, going to the house of Yahweh, being taught by Yahweh at his house every Sabbath. This is going to go on throughout all eternity. Isaiah 58, if you will keep my Sabbaths. It all hinges on if you will keep my Sabbath. No ifs, ands, and buts. It's there. If you will do this, you can have salvation. And now look at Daniel now. Daniel 9 in verse 11. Yes, all Israel has transgressed. All Israel? You know, you see the news there and you see them walking with their mask on, and you read. They announce it and they put it on writing underneath their pictures that 82% of these people that's getting the coronavirus, it only comes if you have the mark of the beast. Why on earth would the people in Israel have the mark of the beast? They don't worship Yahweh. It's simple. That's what Yeshua said. The time is come and now is when the Father will not be worshipped in Jerusalem or in these mountains. Who's being worshipped? You just read it. The Lord of a heavenly habitation. And they got her set up, and of course they're working things out now, not for peace, as you can see. They might have hoped at one time it would bring peace, but I think everybody sees past that now. Well, 9 verse 11, yes, all Israel has transgressed transgressed your laws and turned away and has refused to obey your voice. Therefore, the curse, you see that word curse? If you look this word curse up, it means sickness. It also means plague. Plagues. What we're seeing in Revelations, we just turned from. Revelations 16 and verse 1. That's poured. Daniel 27, 9:27. Upon the people, yes, in Israel and all over the world who have the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast are those who do not keep Yahweh's laws properly, his Sabbath. Yeshua said they greatly polluted my Sabbath. You can't pollute the Sabbath if you're going to keep it. You can't keep it sacred and keep it unsacred too. Yeshua told you that. Righteousness don't mix with evil. Therefore, the curse, that is, the plagues, Revelation 16, the plagues, 7 last plagues, and chapter 9 of Revelation. Therefore, the curse has devoured the curse. Therefore, the curses against us, written in the laws, the curses shown against us in the law. Therefore, the curses shown that is written in the law. It is written. It is written in the law. Curses that is written in the law, which was given us, written in the law, which was given through Moshe. They rejected, Acts 7. So he makes sure he names it here, see? So you'll know what laws he's talking about. This was the same laws that preachers look on today and they'll say, oh, he wants to teach them old Jewish laws. If you realize the influence those words actually bring to your mind, and people asked, well, why won't that guy eat pork? Oh, he's one of them old Yahweh people that teaches that you need to keep them old Jewish laws. But see, not quoting a scripture, not giving any proof, but sending out an accusation. And this is the same routine that Satan used in Genesis 3. Moshe, through Moshe, the servant of Yahweh, are poured. See, they're poured, they're taught, like the coronavirus, the 7 last plagues, they're poured, they're taught. Same way you learn the laws of Yahweh, by teaching. And that's what we're doing today. Poured upon as because we have sinned. The servant of Yahweh are poured upon us because we have sinned against you, O Yahweh. This should pretty much tell you why, it shows you why you are suffering, why you have the mark of the beast, and why you're suffering. This shows you because you're neglecting refusing Yahweh's law. Do you need to read that again? These curses have come upon us. Daniel is saying to the whole house of Israel, the whole 12 tribes, this is saying to Yahweh, why are our people suffering? And Yahweh shows him in black and white, it is written, because we've neglected his law. What law? The law of Moshe. He doesn't leave anything out. What more proof do you need? Why don't you keep the law now? Since you know the curses are coming because you're breaking the law, he's telling you right here, these curses are coming upon our people. The 7 last plague. This was written in 538 BY. Now think a minute. Just think for a little bit. Now, the Bible, I know I have to point this out a lot, but the Bible wasn't given to mankind until about 1600. It was taken away with the temple by God worshipers when they destroyed the temple in 70 AY. They took all the writings of the prophets, which wasn't bound yet, because they didn't have book 2. Did you get that? Book 2 wasn't written. The last book written was in 96 AY. They took everything that was written, inspired by Yahweh, they took it in 70, 26 years before. They put it in prison in Rome. It stayed there until 1600. 1600. It stayed there. Why? In the last days, Yahweh said. That's the last day. 1600. You got the last generation that started 1934. It had to be ready for, in the last days I will establish my house. So it was taken by force in 70 AY by the Roman army to Rome, locked up in prison. It wasn't meant for Daniel. Daniel was the one that wrote it. And Yahweh said, that's all right, Daniel. You don't need to understand. Just seal it up until the time of the end. See, it's all there for you. And in the time of the end, I will have my house. And my house will explain to you, come to the house, and you will receive Yahweh's teaching. But that's the only place he promises it. You won't receive it unless you do. That's what Yeshua tells you in Matthew 23. Okay, back to Daniel now, 27. And the last part there, he poured out. Now that word poured actually shows Revelations 16:2 being poured out, meaning taught. That's what we're doing. We're teaching the laws of Yahweh. Look at with that verse now, 16:2 in mind, Revelation 16:2 in mind, and then Daniel 9:27, and then verse 30. Verse 11, where Daniel says, we've all sinned and turned from you. Now look at Matthew. Matthew, you got to get this with Matthew. Matthew 24, and look at verse 15. Matthew 24 and verse 15. He leaves nothing out here. He says, therefore, when you will see the Lord of heaven, remember the Lord of heaven taken over there. Remember that? Come on now, get your mind on Lord of heaven. Back in Daniel, Daniel 9:27. You got that in your mind? Look at verse 15 now. You got to tie these two together, because this shows you, man, Matthew 24 is speaking of the same thing. It's speaking of how you can prevent this plague, or how you can live through this plague and remain alive, protected even from the wars. Matthew 24:15. Therefore, when you see the Lord of heaven, when you see this, what Daniel, and notice he says, as spoken by Daniel the prophet. When you see the Lord of heaven as spoken by Daniel the prophet. This says standing in a holy place. It's stand. When you see him standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. So Yahweh has opened the door to understanding now, not just to a few, but as Jeremiah 25:23, Jeremiah 23, Zechariah 6, Revelations 22, a lot of scripture. It's open to all nations, being taken to all nations right now. Now, even then, even with that, Yeshua said, only a few is going to accept it. It's still up to you. In fact, he said, it's going to be like the days of Noah, just like it was in the days of Noah, when only 8 was saved after 40 years of teaching. It's going to be like that. We're going to all nations right now. And Yeshua says only a few. It's praise Yahweh. Therefore, when you see the Lord of heaven, the abomination of desolation, that is also translated the abomination that makes the desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, whosoever reads, let him understand. Let him understand that. In Revelations it says, let him who reads and him who hears. Okay, this was Matthew now, 24:15. Daniel 9:27, you've got to get that, put that together with it. Then Daniel 9:11, put that with it. Genesis 3:1 shows you this serpent, 3:1. Revelations 12:9 says that old certain serpent called the devil and Satan. The word Vatican, you need to write this underneath those scriptures and look up the word. The word Vatican means divining serpent. When you see the divining serpent's the one that put it together. The whole 7-year peace treaty, when it was shut down by Netanyahu, the divining serpent was the one that said, no, we have this is law now. We've already signed it. You've signed it. We got it right here. And I remember the arguments. They're still available. We have them on tape. I remember using them in the sermons. The arguments that the divining serpent brought forth. Well, now Netanyahu said, no, I'm not going to do it. It'd be detrimental to Israel. So they took the divining serpent out. They shut the power off to the divining serpent. Well, now it's back again. We see it again. The divining serpent has now re-entered the picture and will bring about the, as Daniel said, the abomination that makes desolate. And this is what you see in Israel right now. You see, you don't see Yahweh being worshipped there. You see the divining serpent being worshipped there. You see the people walking around in prestigious clothing, just like they did in the days of Yeshua Messiah. That means nothing in the way of salvation or inheritance to this kingdom that Yahweh is saying is yours if you will repent, be converted, and prove to heaven and earth. That's what we're doing right now. We're proving we can't be pulled away. Right there. We're going to stick with it. We're going to stick with it. The more they try to pull us away, the tougher we're going to get. I'll put that in writing. In fact, I think I already have. May Yahweh bless your understanding. Yahweh bless your understanding. And I'll turn the services back to the next leader. I love you.
If you all raise your hands. Heavenly Father Yahweh, this is the Baya. Come to Father, my name the Baya Cons. Do Pastor Hawkins and Yeshua said. Bless the food and drink. Please bless the sickness lifted. Please bless Pastor with the full use of a separation mind connection. Please release Kanye from prison. Please help us to take care of everything you've learned today. I thank you for this great Sabbath that you bless us with. Please help us learn all we can from the classes that will be going on today. Please make us how you want us to be, because that's how you want to be, and all these things Hashem says. Hallelujah, praise Yahweh.